Hello everyone. So today I want to talk about one of my favourite series of films. I have my cup of tea, my mug of tea here. That's a little clue about what we're going to talk about today. This is a symbol of that series of films, and of course it's the Avengers films from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Apologise in advance for those of you who are not familiar with it, but hopefully by the end of this video you'll go away inspired to watch some of them. And just a spoiler alert, we will I will reveal something very important about the plots towards the end of those films. So if you don't want to know that, then maybe go and watch the films first and come back and watch this video. But just a little background, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is obviously all those superheroes. It's owned by Disney now. So, yeah, cynically speaking, we could say that their intention in making these films is to make money. But they are very well made films, and in my opinion, they are like the modern myths. They're based on the comic books created by Marvel, in particular Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and those comic books and these films serve as myths, just like in ancient cultures with the Greek goddesses and gods and Romans and all the mythologies they had. Those mythologies were intended to help us to learn about values in life and certain truths. And so these superhero films aim to do the same. And of course, when we're talking about trying to communicate truths to our children and to all of society through these myths and this art form, then of course God must come into it at some point, and our faith as well, even if it's unintentional. So of course, I use this a lot with the children because they all have watched these films, they all know these names, and it gets them interested and listening. And the main premise is you've got these superheroes, these people who have gifts, superhuman powers beyond what we normally have. And they're not all humans, of course. There are some characters from different planets who have these superpowers too. Perhaps we could go into each character separate films in another video, but this is just going to be an overview of the main points of this cinematic universe. And so we get these the children to think about superpowers. What does it mean when you're given these great gifts, and we say the gifts have been given by God? What do we do with them? And thankfully, in these films and these Marvel films, the characters in the main choose to do good with their gifts. They choose to help others, to serve others, to save the world eventually. And there's all sorts of issues going on about messiah complexes and wanting to save the universe by ourselves if we had these superpowers. But then the great realization from all these superheroes is that they can't do it on their own. Not one superhero can do it on their own. They have to assemble. Avengers assemble. That's the whole thing. They work as a team together to help save the world. And the overarching narrative is that there's a bad guy called Thanos, and his vocation in life, he believes that he is created to bring balance to the universe, and the clue is in his name, Thanos, related to death. The way he does that is he wants to gather all these are called Infinity Stones. It would take too long to explain what they actually are, but once he's got his hands on all of those, he can just snap his fingers, and he intends to wipe out half of the living beings in the universe. That's his answer, and that's a very appropriate issue with the way we are becoming more aware of the environment and our responsibility as God's stewards to look after the universe and make it a better place. And of course, some philosophies, some governments' approaches in the past as well have been perhaps we need to see human beings as the way to improve the universe. Get rid of human beings and the creation will all of a sudden improve and flourish. But of course, we know that our belief in God and the way Jesus has taught us is that human beings are the center of the universe, the dignity of human life. And that comes through in this series of films because the bad guy sees life as disposable. He's happy to wipe out half of the world in order to put less pressure on the universe's resources and so on and so forth. That's his justification for wiping out half the universe. But of course, our main characters, the good guys, see the value in each and every human being. And so there's a plot twist where they have to go back and try and bring everyone back because everybody is valuable. That's the message, one of the messages that comes across from this film. And of course, with the gifts and powers, I was so excited and grateful when I realized our diocese, when they were launching the sacraments of confirmation preparation, they had those big launch days. There was a link between the gifts that the superheroes have and then the gifts that saints of the church have, the superheroes of the church. They linked 7 superheroes, 7 saints, and then of course the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit that we all receive at confirmation, and what we do with them, how we serve God, serve each other with those gifts. So that's the main theme, the 2 main themes there that come across that are really relevant to our faith and also to the world in general now as well, as I said, about our environmental issues and our responsibilities to each other, serving other people, loving each other, using our gifts to serve other people and God's creation. But here's where the spoiler comes. This mug, as I've said in a previous video, was a gift to me, and it shows how powerful symbols are. This is my theory. It's not an official theory and probably not intended at all by the directors and the writers of the films. But we as Christians have the crucifix as a sign, a reminder of how we have been saved. That's the sign of the means of our salvation. To say, don't forget, Christ has done this for you. He's transformed what is the worst thing in the universe. This horrific, violent symbol has now become a symbol of hope. There's a crucifix just behind me there. It reminds us all the time that positive good news that no matter how ugly life gets, God transforms it for us. That is the means of our salvation. It reminds us of that. And in a strange way, this symbol, this is Iron Man's hand, and he has the Infinity Stones in his suit, so the hand of the suit there. And the thing is, no mortal being, so to speak, can wield the power of these Infinity Stones and live. And in order to defeat the bad guy and stop all of this destruction going on, Iron Man is kind of like a Christ figure. He obtains these stones and then gives his life to save everyone else, because with the snap of his fingers and with the power of these stones, he restores the balance to the universe. He saves everyone from certain destruction by this Thanos character again. So in a way, I don't know whether it was intended, but at the end of this whole series of 22 films, or 24, I think, if you count Spider-Man, but that's another issue to do with Sony and Disney rights. But anyway, in all those films, we come to this character Iron Man, who is the first Avenger we meet, and then he is on his journey as he sees other people sacrificing themselves and giving their lives to save others. Through those examples, he finally comes to the realization that he too is being called to do that, because he's quite a brash, arrogant, annoying character in a way. He's not very likable, but he becomes more and more likable on his journey, and eventually he is the one, the Christ character, who gives his life to save everyone else. So That's my point. This is like the crucifix in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It shows the power of symbols. Ours, of course, is much more powerful because it's real. Jesus really did that for us. That really did happen. But we can see how tapping into the imagination, teaching our children about these truths through these imaginary worlds can embed those messages into their imaginations and our imaginations too, and we can benefit so much. So I'm grateful to the creators of this series of films because we now have this treasure trove of myths and legends that can help us communicate truths about the world, about God, and about who we are and what our responsibility is in the world.